Good morning, everyone, and welcome. It's really wonderful to see so many people here today for what promises to be an extraordinary experience. Today isn't just about a book launch. It's the beginning of a conversation about what it really means to be and live a legendary life. One decision, one habit, and one principle at a time. Over the next 2 hours, we'll journey behind ideas and into action. You'll hear direct from the author, Dr. Richard Botha, as he shares not only the inspiration behind the book, but also the hard-earned lessons that shaped the laws within them. We'll reflect on what success truly means in a rapidly changing world, and you'll learn and leave here with more than just a signed copy. You'll walk away with insights, strategies, and a new sense of clarity about your own path. Here's the truth. Success isn't a one-time event or lucky break. It's a craft, something that's built deliberately, shaped by character, discipline, and a deep understanding of who we are and where we are going. That is what this book offers. And that is what we are here for today, transformation. Before we dive into the main session, I want you to think about one simple question. What does success mean to you? And am I living it or just chasing it? Keep that question in the back of your mind as you listen, reflect, and engage today. Because by the end of this morning, you may discover a new answer. It is now my honor to introduce the visionary behind the work, a thinker, a leader, a lifelong student of the human potential, someone who has dedicated his entire career to unlocking the best in people, organizations, and communities, and my father. Please join me in welcoming the author of Alchemy of Success, the 118 Laws of a Legendary Life, Dr. Richard Botha.
The fruit of my loins worked hard to get him to be that civilized over a long period of time. Welcome everybody, thank you very much. Thanks for being here. I don't know if I can call this a labor of love, because the lessons that I tried to put in the book came with a lot of pain, like lessons normally are. There's a saying that says that lessons not learned in blood is soon forgotten. So let's dive into this and get to the why. And the one word that popped up that really drove this is the word mediocrity. We are so driven in this world and so indoctrinated to mediocrity that we never really take the time to think about success and what it means to us. Because every individual in every different stage in their life has got a different definition of success. And we never take the time to do that. Now, by the time you're 2 years old, your parents has already told you about 1 million times, you don't do that, you shouldn't do that, it's going to hurt you. And through the rest of our lives, the biggest enemy of success in our lives is our loved ones. Why? Because our primitive brains are wired for survival. And therefore, your loved ones, your parents, your siblings, your closest friends, want to make sure that you survive. And anything that looks risky, you should be kept away from. And that is why when you tell your family and your friends you're going to start a new business, you're going to run the comrades, you're going to climb Everest, invariably they will tell you, no, wait. That is way too risky. And never do you have anybody that really talk to you about success. Now, success for a 1-year-old is to get up and walk. And success for the 90-year-old is to have a pair of underpants at the end of the day and make it to the toilet in time. So success is totally different in different parts of our lives. And we are so driven by mediocrity that we hardly ever grow past that to find what is successful in our lives. So let me tell you a story that you all know from a different viewpoint. The story of David and Goliath. And we all know the version that we've been told, but here's a different version. So Goliath was part of the Philistines. They were seafaring people. And they heard about this rich city on the hill called Jerusalem, and they wanted to invade it. And they came in with their ships, and you had all these valleys formed by ancient volcanic action, which is very important in the story. And the volcanic action made all these little valleys. And the Philistines camped in one valley, and the Israelites camped in another valley. And the valley of Kidron was in the middle. And day by day, as the story goes, Goliath would mock the Israelites and challenge them to send their best fighter. And then pitched up David, and he was typically like the new employee that had no idea what was going to happen, and we sent him out to go and fix the major problem that the company was facing. So the first question that comes up is, why did he pick up 5 stones? Well, Goliath had 4 brothers, which is not widely known. In the stone, that is a very important thing. But those wavy valleys was called Shephelah. And Shephelah comes from the term that is used for volcanoes. Now, if you look at Goliath, first, he is apparently quite a big guy, so he walks with great difficulty. The Bible tells us that he had somebody that had to carry his weapons for him. So obviously he couldn't move very fast. Then he tells David, come closer that I can see you. So the scientist said, well, if you look at this, he was very big, so he needed a lot more growth hormone. So he had acromegaly, which is an oversecretion of growth hormone, which increases the size of the skull and causes nearsightedness. So it affects the sight. So he couldn't see well. Then he said, come closer, I can see you. Why do you have a stick in your hand? Do you want to chase me away like a dog? In other words, he wasn't agile. He couldn't move fast. And then the biggest trick is, in the stones that he picked up, the scientists did research in that Shephelah, in that valley, and they found out that the basalt rocks that's in that valley is 10 times harder than any other stone that you can get. Now, in the run-up to this, the story tells you that David was an extremely good hunter, and he used a slingshot, and he killed lion and bear with the slingshot. So he was very adept in that. Now, you take a rock that's 10 times harder than any other rock, you put it in a slingshot, and people that can use it, and the proof is there still today, can sling that rock, and by the time you release it, it has got the speed and the weight of a 45 caliber handgun. So now it changes everything, because now Goliath had a sword in his hand. He brought a knife to a gunfight. It changes the way that you look at it. So now the traditional David and Goliath story that we've got is not the little guy with just a rock and the big guy with a sword. Well, it's a small guy with a very big handgun. And a big guy that can hardly see him and this guy hits him with a 45 between the eyes. It changes the whole story. And that changes our idea of success. Because at school, you are taught to sit still for 6 hours. Now, for little boys, primary school boys, that is probably the worst thing that you can ever think of. To sit still for 6 hours. Then do exactly what you are being told. And then you might go home. So if you think about school at the moment, you go and stand in the line, then the bell rings. Then you go to your workspace. You go and sit and you do work. Then the bell rings, you take your little food package, if you've got one, you go outside for a while, bell rings, fall in line, bell rings, go and sit in your space and work. What is that? It's the Industrial Revolution. It's been done like that for 150 years. So by the time that we leave school and maybe go to university or do a trade or all that, we are so indoctrinated to be average that very few, and Neil and I was just talking about the cracks in the industry, very few people fall into that crack that think outside the box. Now, if you look at me, I'm unemployable. I figured that out long ago when I dragged another person over a boardroom table, a person that Neil will know well, and I realized that my personality doesn't fit into a corporate world. But I was forced into a corporate world because I was a maverick. And part of my failure to succeed came from when I was at university, and I thought I was extremely clever, and I became the barman for the dean of the university. And he had a private bar next to his office, like academics do. And at one point, I got very friendly with his secretary, on a very platonic basis. She was very good looking, I was just telling you, I've always had good taste in women. And I obtained his letterhead. And like you do, I sent a letter to my old school, and those days you still did the IQ tests from standard 8 to matric, now grade 10 to grade 12. So I sent him a letter, well typed up on her typewriter, to ask them for a copy of my results. And they duly sent it, and I intercepted that. And then I saw what according to those tests, my IQ was. And I thought, I'm super clever. I don't have to do anything. Success will just come to me in life. And halfway through the army, I bought a business, which I should never have bought. Didn't understand it, couldn't catch up at all, but I bought a business and then got on a plane and went to some other country where they didn't ask for passports because she wore funny clothing. And when I got back, the only person that wanted to talk to me was the sheriff of the court to tell me that I had no less than nothing. So it took me a long time, and not long after that I got divorced and left the Dutch Reformed Church. So I hit the trifecta in the Afrikaans community because all the deadly sins I already got under the belt before 35. And I went on this journey to find out what did I do wrong and what does success mean to me. And I went to America and I studied, came back, and all the pieces of paper didn't give me the answer. And then, by luck, I went on a coaching course, a leadership coaching course that was done by John Maxwell. And during this course, I had the privilege of having an hour of discussion with him. And obviously it changed my life because he is a phenomenal person. And not everybody get a chance, that defining moment in life, to meet a person like that. But he's been thinking about leadership for a long time, and leadership starts here. And I sat with him, and he wanted to know my whole story, and obviously I told him my whole soppy story. He said, "Oh, I've got the answer for you. Couldn't you have pitched up 20 years earlier? You could have saved me a lot of time." And he said to me these words, and I'm going to say it twice, that you can really listen to it because it explains life. And he said to me, "You cannot have what somebody else has got until you become the person that person has become." And if you think about that, in every aspect of our lives, we want what somebody else has already got. far as I can figure out, there's only one person on this planet who wants something that nobody else has got, and that's Elon Musk. And he wants to go to other funny planets and do other funny things. So everything that we want, that perfect job, that perfect car, that perfect wife, that perfect life, that perfect body, somebody else has got. So who did they become to be able to do that? And then, because I come from a scientific background, hammered into me by Professor Offenmeyer and his psychics, I thought about, but if there's order in the world, and obviously I had questions around my own beliefs in the world and how it works, and I went back to the laws of nature. And the first law of nature is energy cannot be created or destroyed. So if we start there and say, but nature runs on systems, there's rules, and everything works as it was designed for that. If we follow that kind of logic, then there should be a kind of logic for success. Now, in 1850, around there, Dmitry Medvedev was a struggling student. Typically, he probably didn't come from Pretoria East, so he didn't have the money to go to university, and he really struggled to get into university, and finally he got into a third-rate university in Russia. But he had this idea that in chemistry, then there were 28 known elements. And people started to understand it and understand molecular weight, and that there was a logic on what they were. And he started to arrange it, and he saw that there was a pattern that nobody else has seen. And that's why he started to create the periodic table, and he placed all the elements where they were supposed to be, but he left spaces for the things that didn't exist yet, or people hasn't discovered yet. And if we look at the periodic table today, that is the basis of the known universe that we live in. Everything is in there, and most of that is in you. So if we think about it, if we take anybody in this room, if we burn your body, what remains is 9.8 ounces. It's a standard for all human beings. If you're fat, thin, big, tall, small, doesn't matter. It's a standard. If you think that 75% of your body is water, that will evaporate. So what remains? Well, it's energy, because your body is an energy converting engine. At one stage I worked with a bunch of engineers, and I printed out the Krebs cycle that is an extremely complex cycle, a chemical cycle that takes carbohydrates and turns it into adenosine diphosphate, and then adenosine triphosphate, which is your cellular energy that the mitochondria uses in the cell to give you life. And one of the engineers, a chemical engineer, came in late and he looked at it and he said, "Hell, the guy that designed this, he really knew what he was doing. What is this?" And I explained it to him. I said, yes, if you look at nature, everything works according to a logical sequence. So success should work the same. And that's why I started to design this. Said there must be a logical sequence of things that we should do if we want to be successful. And it doesn't matter what you want to be. If you want to be a successful athlete, a successful mother, a successful business person, a successful old person, somewhere in there is the elements that you need to be able to be successful. If you take sodium and chlorine and it's separate, it means nothing. If you put it together, you've got table salt. At one stage in the Middle Ages, it was worth more than gold. Now, the word alchemy is, and I would like to show you just if I can find it. the symbol for alchemy. And please do not confuse this with anything about Freemasonry, because it's not the same. But the whole idea of alchemy was originally to convert lead into gold. 500 years later, people figured out that it can be done. A Japanese company 2 months ago announced that they figured out how to convert lead into gold. And they project that they will be able to, in the next 10 years, create 100 tons of gold out of lead. But for 500 years, nobody could figure it out, and people started to understand that there's a different thing in this, where you've got the triangle in the back, you've got a square, which is in there, I promise you, and then you've got the dot. And let me give you the explanation of that, and I'll come back to pi just now. So the triangle, and that's how I organized the book. The triangle is your vision, your action, and your fire. That thing that drives you to get out of bed every day. Now the fire, and you'll see on the table, the second law of success is leadership. Because the most difficult person to lead on this earth is you. Because if we are in a work environment and we've got people with KPIs that we have to manage, we're always extremely strict on those KPIs, and you have to perform to that. But if we come to ourselves, we're always very lenient, and we tell ourselves that our intentions were pure, and I'll try better in the future. But I'm not going to judge myself too harshly. So the first law, 1 to 10, is all about the spark of purpose and direction. Now, the first law is the law of vision. And if you don't have a vision for your life, how are you ever going to get there? It's like the captain of a yacht that sails out of the harbor with no point to go to, no map. You just sit there. And the yacht will never fulfill its purpose, because a yacht was never built to sit in a harbor. So none of you were ever built not to be successful. So if you look at on a DNA level, on each of you, there's never been a person like you, the same DNA. There will never be, as far as mathematics go. So if you are such a unique being, are you there for a purpose or not? So vision is the first, and the first 10 laws is then your action and your fire. The circle represent unity, balance, and emotion. That's laws 11 to 70, and that's the integration of the mind and spirit. Now, I discovered a word that means so much to me. Now, by accident or by design, I'm not sure, but it's mentioned in the Bible 75 times. But it's mistranslated. And thank you to AI now that we start to understand how many parts of the Bible was originally mistranslated or mistranslated on purpose. So King James translated or gave instructions to translate the Bible in a certain way because he wanted to get a divorce from his wife, and the Pope wouldn't give it to him, and there were certain other things that he wanted to bring in as control, and it's probably one of the most read Bibles at the moment on the earth. So we understand that there was lots of words that was mistranslated, but the one word that was mistranslated and probably used as a weapon the most is the word metanoia. That's the original Greek. Now, in the popular Bibles, it is translated as redemption. You have to repent to get redemption. So repentance is used as a word for you're guilty and all those kind of things. The correct translation is transformation. And then you can bring it back to how do I transform what I've got into what I want to be. And that journey needs a plan. And that journey needs all the elements that you need to put together. So, my father was a chartered accountant. My mother was a lawyer. And we were a very good middle-class family. And when I went insolvent, I said to my dad, why don't you teach me about business? He said, what do you mean? I'm the financial director for a big company. I do statements. I don't know how to run a business. And then it struck me that we need mentors in our life. We need people to teach us what we need to know, because we are all empty vessels, and we live in this make-believe world. I lived in a make-believe world that when the university gave me 2 pieces of paper, I suddenly knew everything. Boy, was I in for a surprise. And I think most people find the same, is that you need a mentor at one stage in your life for different things that needs to happen. And that was my drive for this book, is to be the mentor for people that I needed when I was young and still need in my life. Then the third one is the square. That's discipline, systems, and earth. That's law 71 to 117, the manifestation of inner mastery. Because there's this old story of that the American Indian told. It says you've always got these 2 wolves in you, a white wolf and a black wolf, that's fighting. And the white wolf is the good part of you, and the black wolf is the bad part of you. And then somebody asks him, who's winning? He said, the one that you feed. So what are we feeding? Are we the victim mentality always, or are we the winner mentality? And that's something that you decide for yourself. It is, am I going to have a strategy in my life that will drive me to success? And what does that success look like? Or will I be the victim and always have the victim mentality and depend on other people, demand other people to help me and assist me and make sure that I have a good living? And then the dot in the center, that's the self, the source. And that's the last one, law 118, this the law of execution. And that's where the big gap is. There's a million ideas every day. Of that million ideas, is probably one that gets to execution. So how do I live my life so that I can execute that my life to find that sweet spot where I am successful? Now, we all know the number pi, 1.6, and then it goes on. That's the most magical number, and that's your success. Because within that number is contained every possible number ever existed on earth. Your birth date is in there, your divorce date is in there, your parents' death is in there, the lottery numbers is in there, everything is there because it's an infinite number. Now, we know that you can add a value, a monetary a value to a letter, and if you do that, every word that's ever been spoken, every word that's ever been written is in that number. So that is, if we want to put success into one number, that is it. And that is how probably simple and complex it is to be successful. Okay, so just to close off that part, the golden triangle is purpose, the circle of gold is presence, and the periodic table grid is the process. So obviously to be successful, you have to be present. But you can be present until you're blue in the face. If you don't have a process that you can follow, it will help nothing. So out of the chaos, we set out to find the same in success. Is how do we use the laws, and it's not the only laws by far, but how do we use written down laws that we can understand and it's easy to refer to build that success. So the success in a formula is, if nature has laws, why shouldn't human greatness? The one thing that I just want to point out, and I'm not going to spend time on the slides, is the one thing that drives me, and I think it's just interesting that it's in the Bible, but the sentence that says, and do not be conformed to the world, but transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove that the will of God, that which is good and acceptable and perfect, and it's all within you. So even if you take out the will of God, it is still applicable to everybody. So the question is, are you the element that the whole world has been waiting for? Because Miles Monroe, who was a Caribbean evangelist, he's got this fantastic, he's passed away now, but he's got this fantastic message about where's the richest place on earth. I don't know if you have heard this message. The richest place on earth is not the gold mines, it's not the Fort Knox, it is the graveyard. Because that is where all the dreams are buried. All the books that were never written, all the businesses that were never started, all the relationships that we never got into, all the potential that was never realized is buried there. Now, one thing that I live my life by is the development of talent. And I start with myself. So there's a tricky thing that we all get talents. We all get obvious talents. Somebody can sing, that's not me. Some people can run fast. Some people can draw. Some people has got just a knack to talk to people or have that presence that people talk to them and start sharing their whole life. Everybody has got talents, obvious talents. But the one thing I figured out is everybody's got unlimited talents. But you have to develop the ones that you've got to a certain level before your next talent is revealed to you. Because you need a certain level of maturity to understand what your next talent is. So my biggest fear is that I leave this world without having developed the maximum amount of talents that I've got. And it is true for everybody. So how will you measure success at the end of your life? And the question more in that is, on legacy, is what will continue when you are gone? In memory, in things that you did, things that you said, we still quote the Stoics that lived 300-400 years before Christ. In a very secular, hateful world, the birth of Christ is still a point in the world that we refer to as timelines. Who he was, what he was, open to lots of debate. But the impact that he had on teaching is still felt in the world, and people are still fighting over that. We're still looking at things like the Eiffel Tower that was meant to be there for 2 months. And it's been standing there for 120 years, 130 years. So the question is, how will you be seen as being successful? When you view yourself, but when other people view you. So when I was younger and better looking, when I worked with groups, I would get people to write their own obituary. It was a bit destructive and people couldn't focus after that. But it's an extremely sobering experience to write your own obituary. To say, what was my life like? Because this human experience that we get is brief. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. You're going to be around for a long time. Because most of you is energy. And I can tell you, experience has been done. People has been weighed at the point of death through that process and at the other side. And at that moment of death, people weigh less than before death. It becomes difficult to explain that. Why? Well, something was there before and something has gone after. What is that? So it's science. It's something that we argue about. It's not science is settled. That's not the nature of science. We argue about things. But that is what we want to get to. That's what the book is for, is as something to get you to think. Socrates said that I cannot teach anybody anything new. All I can do is teach them to think. Now, in the world where we live in, we've never been taught to think. We've been taught what to think. But we've never been taught how to think. And if you don't take the time and you don't work on it to challenge the things that you think about and how you think about it. And both Rian and Neil will agree with me. We still think about pharmacology like Professor Offermeyer told us to do. Because why would we challenge it? But until you sit down and you start to think about these things and challenge it and build your own version of success. And what is it? Is it to have a good marriage? To be a good parent? To run the mile under 4 minutes? To walk from the bed to the toilet? What is success for you? What does success mean for your family? What does it mean to be a successful family? And those are the questions that I'm trying to answer in the book. Trying to give people the tools to understand themselves. This is to change individuals, not the world. If we change enough individuals, we'll change the world. I've got no delusions that we'll get you enough people that want to read the book. It's quite a hefty book. But the few that do, hopefully they get the tools to make better decisions in their lives. To make decisions that make them happy. And then the question is, what is happiness? What makes you happy? So this is just a time to pause for a moment and to say, how do I reflect on my own life? How do I find the path where I should be? Because I do believe that everybody has got a purpose and a path. If you don't believe in that, let's go to the upper floor and then you jump off. Let's see if gravity works. So, as there are laws of nature, there are laws of success. And maybe I was able to capture 118 of them. And there's probably exponentially more than that I didn't even think about, or there was no space in this book for, or as we go along, you'll find new ones. But use the book just as a guidance, just as a reflection point, to give you your own questions to ask about success. And then go forth and be spectacularly successful. Thank you for coming today. Okay.
We're going to have a small break, and we're going to get refreshments outside, and then we'll come back.